I was sitting in my office when my phone rang and James's voice cut through me like ice. "We need to talk. I got some very interesting information about you today." When I got home, he was standing in our living room, holding a piece of paper, his face pale and his hands shaking. He threw what looked like a medical document onto the coffee table without looking at me. "Care to explain this pregnancy report with another man's name on it?" I stared at the paper in complete shock, not understanding what I was looking at. Before I tell you how my own sister tried to destroy my life and how I made her pay the ultimate price drop, a comment telling me where you are watching from, and if you have ever been betrayed by a sibling, hit that like button because this revenge story will blow your mind. But what she did not know about my secret financial support will make the ending even sweeter. Let me give you the full picture of my life before everything fell apart. I'm Alana, 29 years old, and I had worked my way up to senior marketing director at a Fortune 500 company with a salary of $120,000 a year. I had been completely self-sufficient since I was 22, building my career through long hours and dedication, while most people my age were still figuring out their lives. James and I had been together for 2 years, and he was everything I had ever wanted in a partner. At 32, he was a software engineer with his own successful consulting business. He was kind, intelligent, and completely supportive of my career ambitions. We had been engaged for 6 months and were planning a spring wedding that felt like the perfect culmination of everything I had worked toward. What James did not know, and what I had deliberately kept from him, was the extent to which I had been financially supporting my family. My father, Michael, worked as an electrician, and my mother, Susan, had a part-time job at the local grocery store. Their combined income was barely enough to cover their basic living expenses, let alone the college tuition for my younger sister, Emma, or the mortgage payments on their house. For the past 3 years, I had been quietly paying Emma's college tuition, which cost $18,000 each year. I had also been covering my parents' mortgage payment of $2,200 every month. On top of that, there were constant emergencies that required additional financial help, car repairs, medical bills, home maintenance issues. In total, I had given my family over $145,000 during those 3 years. Emma was 22 and in her junior year studying psychology at the State University. She had average grades but lived an extravagant lifestyle that should have been impossible on a student budget. Her social media was filled with expensive shopping hauls, weekend trips to nearby cities, and dinners at restaurants that cost more than most students spent on groceries in a month. My parents had no idea where she got the money for these luxuries, and I had never told them that I was funding her lifestyle beyond just tuition. The dynamic in our family had always been complicated. Emma was the baby who could do no wrong, while I was the responsible older sister who was expected to take care of everyone. My parents had never explicitly asked me to support them financially, but when Emma was accepted to university and they could not afford the tuition, I had stepped in without hesitation. When they fell behind on their mortgage during my father's brief unemployment, I had quietly started making the payments. Emma had always resented my success. While I was working 60-hour weeks to build my career, she was enjoying college life and taking my financial support completely for granted. She never thanked me for the tuition payments or acknowledged that her comfortable lifestyle was only possible because of my sacrifices. Instead, she seemed to view my success with increasing bitterness, making sarcastic comments about my perfect life and how some people get all the luck. When James and I got engaged, Emma's attitude became even more pronounced. She asked pointed questions about our wedding plans and made comments about how expensive everything must be. She would roll her eyes when I talked about my job or our relationship, and I could feel the jealousy radiating from her whenever we were in the same room. I had chosen to keep my family's financial situation private from James because I wanted our relationship to be based on our connection, not complicated by money issues. I also knew that James came from a family where everyone was self-sufficient, and I was worried he might judge my family for their dependence on my income. It was a decision that would soon prove to be a critical mistake. The document James had thrown on the table was a pregnancy report from the Women's Health Clinic downtown. It had my name at the top, but listed the father as Marcus Rodriguez, a name I had never heard in my life. According to the report, I was 8 weeks pregnant, which would have been impossible given our relationship timeline unless I had been cheating. The letterhead looked official, complete with clinic stamps and a doctor's signature. James stood across the room from me, his arms crossed, and his face a mask of hurt and betrayal. "I trusted you completely," he said, his voice breaking. "How could you do this to us, who is Marcus Rodriguez? How long have you been cheating on me?" I stared at the document, my mind racing to understand what was happening. "James, I have never seen this before in my life. I do not know anyone named Marcus Rodriguez. I have never been to this clinic. This has to be some kind of mistake." "A mistake?" His laugh was bitter and cold. "This is not a mistake, Alana. This is a medical document with your name on it confirming that you are pregnant with another man's baby. How could I be so stupid to think I actually knew you?" He walked over to the coffee table and picked up my engagement ring, which I had left there that morning while doing dishes. "I cannot marry someone who lies to my face," he said, setting the ring down with a finality that made my stomach drop. "I need you to be honest with me right now. Who is Marcus Rodriguez, and how long has this been going on?" I was crying by this point, desperately trying to convince him that I had no idea what this document was or where it had come from. "James, please, you have to believe me. I have never cheated on you. I do not know who would do this or why, but this is not real." "The evidence is right there," he said, pointing to the paper. "Are you telling me that someone forged a medical document just to break us up? That seems pretty far-fetched even for you." After James left to stay at his brother's house, I spent the entire night trying to figure out what had happened. The next morning, I called the women's health clinic directly. The receptionist was helpful when I explained the situation. "We do not have any records of you as a patient," she confirmed after checking their system. "However, someone did call last week asking about our letterhead format and what information appears on our standard reports. We thought it was strange, but we assumed it was for insurance purposes." When I pressed for more details, she mentioned that their security cameras had captured footage of a young woman coming in for a consultation the week before, though no appointment had been scheduled. My heart sank as she described the woman, young blonde, about 5 feet 4 inches tall. It sounded exactly like Emma. I called Emma immediately, my hands shaking as I dialed her number. "Emma, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." "What are you talking about?" she asked, but there was something in her voice that told me she already knew why I was calling. "Did you have anything to do with a fake pregnancy report being sent to James?" There was a long silence before she finally spoke. "I do not know what you are talking about. Emma, the clinic has security footage of you there last week. James received a fake medical document with my name on it claiming I am pregnant with someone else's baby. Our engagement is over because of this." The silence stretched even longer this time. When she finally responded, her voice was defensive and angry. "You have everything, Alana, perfect job, perfect fiance, perfect life. You walk around like you are so much better than everyone else, and everyone just worships the ground you walk on. So you did do this." "I found someone on Fiverr who makes fake documents for $50. She admitted, her voice breaking. "It was supposed to just shake things up a little. I wanted to see if James really loved you, or if he would run at the first sign of trouble." I was stunned by her casual cruelty. "Emma, you destroyed my engagement. James will not even speak to me now. How could you do something so evil?" "I did not think he would actually break up with you over it. I thought he would confront you and you would figure it out, and he would realize how much he loved you. I was trying to help your relationship. When I called my parents to tell them what Emma had done, their reaction was almost as devastating as the original betrayal. After the initial shock wore off, they immediately went into protection mode for their youngest daughter. "Emma is just jealous," my mother said. "She made a mistake, but she is young. You should forgive her and move on. This will blow over." My father was even worse. "Maybe this is a sign that James is not the right one for you," he said. If he does not trust you enough to work through this, then you are better off without him. I could not believe what I was hearing. Dad, Emma committed fraud to destroy my relationship. She deliberately sabotaged my engagement, and you are defending her. Family is family, he replied. Emma needs support right now, not judgment. She feels terrible about what happened. I tried one more time to reconcile with James, bringing him printed emails from the clinic, confirming that the document was fake and that I had never been a patient there. He was apologetic about doubting me initially, but the damage had been done. I believe you about the document being fake, he said quietly. But the fact that your own sister would do something this calculated and cruel makes me question everything about your family. What other drama will I have to deal with if I marry into this situation? What if Emma decides to target our children someday? James asked for time to think and suggested postponing our wedding indefinitely. The ring stayed on the coffee table where he had left it, a constant reminder of everything Emma had destroyed with her $50 lie. Emma's apology came 3 days later in the form of a text message. I am sorry it went too far. I just wanted to see if James really loved you. I thought he would investigate instead of immediately believing it. It is not like I actually hurt anyone permanently. Even in her apology, she was still minimizing what she had done and refusing to take full responsibility for the consequences of her actions. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, looking at 3 years' worth of bank statements and financial records. I had never added up the total amount I had been giving my family, but seeing it all laid out in black and white was staggering. $54,000 in college tuition payments for Emma, $79,200 in mortgage payments for my parents, another $12,000 in various emergency expenses, car repairs, medical bills, and other unexpected costs that somehow always fell to me to cover, $145,000. Nearly 3 years of my post-tax income had gone to supporting a family that had just shown me exactly how little they valued my happiness or well-being. Emma had been willing to destroy my life for the temporary satisfaction of causing drama, and my parents had chosen to defend her rather than acknowledge the magnitude of her betrayal. I closed my laptop and made a decision that would change everything. If Emma wanted to play adult games and destroy my relationship, then she could handle adult consequences. My family had been taking my financial support for granted for years, treating me like a personal ATM, rather than recognizing the enormous sacrifices I had been making for their comfort and security. The next morning, I called the university's financial aid office and informed them that I would no longer be responsible for Emma's tuition payments. The automated payment system I had set up was canceled immediately, and Emma's student account would show a balance due of $18,000 within 24 hours. If the payment was not made within 30 days, her enrollment would be suspended. My second call was to the mortgage company. I had been listed as an authorized payer on my parents' account, which allowed me to make payments without them having to know the details. I removed myself from this authorization and informed them that no further payments would be coming from my accounts. Their mortgage was already 45 days behind, since my parents had not been making any payments of their own, assuming that I would continue covering the expense indefinitely. The third call was to Emma's car insurance company. I had been paying her premiums for 2 years, thinking it was a small expense that helped keep her safe on the road. That policy was canceled immediately. I also stopped the automatic payments I had been making on her credit card, which she had been using for her expensive shopping trips and restaurant meals. The consequences began almost immediately. Emma called me at work that afternoon, her voice hysterical. Alana, there is something wrong with my student account. They are saying I owe $18,000 and that my classes will be dropped if I do not pay by next Friday. There has to be some kind of mistake. There is no mistake, I said calmly. I am no longer paying your tuition. You are an adult who made an adult decision to try to destroy my life so you can figure out how to fund your own education from now on. You cannot be serious. I will get kicked out of school. My entire future will be ruined. You should have thought about that before you decided to ruin my engagement. My parents called an hour later. their voices a mixture of panic and anger. The mortgage company called and said we are behind on our payments, and they are starting foreclosure proceedings, my father said. They said you removed yourself as an authorized payer. What is going on? I am no longer financially supporting this family, I replied. You will need to figure out how to make your own mortgage payments from now on. But we cannot afford the payments. You know our income is not enough to cover the mortgage and all our other expenses. Then you will need to make some changes to your spending or consider selling the house. I am not responsible for your financial planning. My mother got on the phone, her voice desperate. Alana, you cannot just cut us off without warning. We have been depending on your help. How are we supposed to come up with all this money suddenly? You have been depending on my help without ever acknowledging it or showing appreciation for it, I corrected her. Emma wanted to play games with my life, and you chose to support her instead of holding her accountable. These are the consequences of that choice. The family emergency meeting was called for that weekend. I arrived at my parents' house to find Emma red-eyed from crying and my parents looking more stressed than I had ever seen them. Emma immediately fell to her knees when I walked in. Please, Alana, I will do anything. I will apologize to James. I will pay for couples counseling. I will get a job and pay you back. Please do not let me get kicked out of school. Getting a job is an excellent idea, I said. You are 22 years old. It is time you learned how to support yourself. My father was furious. How could you cut us off without any warning? We thought we could count on family to help us through difficult times. Emma destroyed my engagement without any warning, I replied. She made a calculated decision to hurt me in the cruelest way possible. Why should I continue to fund the lifestyle of someone who hates me enough to sabotage my happiness? Over the following weeks, the reality of their situation became clear. Without my financial support, Emma was forced to drop out of spring semester classes. She lost her scholarship opportunities because her academic standing was affected by the incomplete semester. She had to move back into her childhood bedroom because she could not afford to rent her apartment near campus. My parents were forced to take on additional work. My father started working overtime and weekend jobs, while my mother found a full-time position for the first time in years. They had to sell furniture and other valuables to catch up on the mortgage payments they had missed. The comfortable lifestyle they had been living was revealed to be completely dependent on my income. Emma's social life crumbled as quickly as her academic prospects. Without money for shopping trips, restaurants, and weekend getaways, her college friends gradually stopped including her in their plans. Her Instagram account, which had been filled with pictures of her glamorous lifestyle, went silent. She was forced to take a minimum wage job at a fast food restaurant, working 40 hours a week just to help her parents with basic household expenses. The transformation was swift and brutal, but I felt no guilt about it. For years, I had been working extra hours and making sacrifices to fund their comfort while they took my generosity completely for granted. Emma had shown me exactly what she thought of my sacrifices by trying to destroy my happiness for her own entertainment. 6 months after I cut off financial support, the changes in my family were dramatic and permanent. Emma had lost 30 pounds from the stress and the physical demands of working multiple minimum wage jobs. Her hair and nails, which had always been professionally maintained, now showed the effects of her new budget constraints. She was living in my parents' basement, paying them rent to help with the mortgage and utilities. The girl who had once posted daily pictures of her shopping hauls and restaurant meals had not updated her social media accounts in months. When she did post, it was the occasional picture from a free community event or a home-cooked meal. The expensive lifestyle that had defined her college experience was completely gone. My parents had aged visibly under the financial pressure. Both of them were working full-time jobs for the first time in years, and the exhaustion showed in their faces and posture. They had been forced to cancel their annual vacation plans and give up many of the small luxuries they had taken for granted. The stress had put a strain on their marriage with frequent arguments about money and how to manage their reduced circumstances. Emma made several attempts to reconcile with me during this period. She wrote a heartfelt letter admitting full responsibility for what she had done and promising to pay me back every penny I had ever given the family. She showed up at my office building with flowers and tears, begging me to reconsider my decision. She even got down on her hands and knees in my parents' living room, promising to do anything to earn my forgiveness. But I had learned something important. During those months, there is a difference between helping someone and enabling them. For years, I had confused the two, thinking that my financial support was an expression of love. Instead, it had created a dynamic where my family took my sacrifices for granted while feeling entitled to even more. Extended family members initially sided with Emma when they heard about my decision to cut off support. Several aunts and uncles called to lecture me about family loyalty and forgiveness. But as the truth about the fake pregnancy report spread through our family network, opinions began to shift. People who had initially criticized me started to understand the calculated cruelty of what Emma had done. Some relatives offered to help my parents financially, but pride prevented them from accepting charity from anyone else. The irony was not lost on me that they had accepted my help for years without question, but found the idea of asking other family members for assistance humiliating. 8 months after my engagement ended, James reached out to me. We met for coffee at a neutral location, and I could see that he had been struggling with his decision as much as I had been dealing with the aftermath of Emma's betrayal. "I have been thinking about everything that happened," he said carefully. "What Emma did was unforgivable, but I realize now that you are not responsible for her actions. I miss you. I miss us. Do you think we could try again?" I had been hoping for this conversation, but I also knew that things would have to be different if we were going to rebuild our relationship. "The dynamic with my family has changed completely," I told him. "I have cut off all financial support, and our interactions are limited now. But I need to know that you can handle family drama without assuming the worst about me." We began couples therapy to address the trust issues that Emma's betrayal had created. James had to work through his assumptions about my family and his fear that drama would always be a part of our lives. I had to process my own feelings about the family relationships I had lost and the boundaries I had been forced to create. Gradually, we rebuilt our connection. James met the new humbled version of my family during carefully structured visits. My parents were noticeably different people worn down by financial stress, but perhaps more realistic about their circumstances. Emma was working constantly and had no time or energy for the kind of dramatic gestures that had characterized her previous behavior. 1 year after the fake pregnancy report destroyed my engagement, Emma hit what could only be described as rock bottom. She had been forced to drop out of college permanently because she could not afford to return. She was working multiple jobs, but barely surviving financially. The stress had triggered health issues that required medical attention she could not afford. She had no dating prospects because her lifestyle was too unstable to support a relationship. Most significantly, Emma had developed depression and anxiety that required therapy and medication. The girl who had once been the center of attention in every room had become withdrawn and isolated, struggling with the reality of supporting herself for the first time in her life. My parents finally acknowledged the role they had played in creating this situation. They admitted that they had enabled Emma's sense of entitlement and taken my generosity for granted for years. They begged for a limited reconciliation, accepting that financial support would never resume, but hoping to rebuild some kind of relationship. For my part, I had learned valuable lessons about money boundaries and family dynamics. I had invested the money I was no longer giving to my family into my own future, a better apartment travel experiences, and a robust retirement savings account. For the first time in years, I was not stressed about money or worried about how to cover someone else's emergencies. The therapy I pursued during this period helped me understand the family patterns that had shaped my entire adult life. I had been cast in the role of the responsible rescuer, always expected to solve other people's problems, while my own needs were ignored. Learning to set boundaries felt selfish at first, but it ultimately created space for healthier relationships. 2 years after the initial betrayal, James and I were married in a small, beautiful ceremony. The guest list included only people who had supported us through the crisis, which meant that my immediate family was notably absent. Emma was not invited, a decision that caused some extended family drama, but ultimately protected our special day from potential toxicity. Emma made one final attempt to insert herself into my life when she called to tell me she was pregnant and needed help with medical expenses. Her boyfriend was the same type of unreliable person she had always dated, and she was facing the prospect of single motherhood with no financial resources. "I hope you find the support you need," I told her, "but it will not come from me." Emma miscarried a few weeks later, but I maintained my boundaries even through that crisis. I had learned that my role was not to rescue people from the consequences of their own choices, even when those consequences were tragic. The most important lesson I learned was that love without respect is not really love at all. Emma had claimed to love me while simultaneously working to destroy my happiness. My parents had claimed to value family while supporting the family member who had caused the most harm. Real love requires mutual respect, appreciation, and consideration for the other person's well-being. Looking back now, I can see that cutting off financial support was not just about punishing Emma for her betrayal. It was about teaching my entire family that my generosity was a gift, not an entitlement, and that gifts can be withdrawn when they are not appreciated or when they enable destructive behavior. Today, my marriage is thriving because it is built on a foundation of mutual respect and clear boundaries. My career has advanced because I am no longer distracted by constant family financial crises. My savings account is robust because I am investing in my own future instead of subsidizing other people's poor choices. I learned that money cannot buy love, but it can reveal who really loves you and who simply sees you as a resource to be exploited. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is letting them face the consequences of their own actions, even when those consequences are painful to witness. Family does not mean you have to sacrifice your own future for people who do not appreciate your sacrifices. It took Emma's ultimate betrayal for me to understand that some people will destroy your happiness just to feel powerful for 5 minutes. But the most important lesson was that you cannot save someone who does not want to be saved. You can only save yourself. They say family is everything, but I learned that day that respect is everything. And family is just the people who choose to earn it. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone learn what life looks like without you carrying them through it. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and self-respect? What would you have done if a sibling tried to sabotage your most important relationship? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and do not forget to hit that like button. If this story reminded you that your worth is not measured by how much you sacrifice for people who do not appreciate it. Subscribe for more real stories about setting boundaries with toxic family members and the courage it takes to put your own well-being first. Please share this video with someone who needs to hear that love should never come at the expense of their own happiness and financial security. Remember, you teach people how to treat you by what you are willing to accept, and sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is no. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it gives you the strength to value yourself as much as you value the people you love.